what is Farcaster? How do you explain it like I'm 5?
Yeah, so Farcaster is a decentralized social network. And I think for a developer, they grok that immediately. They understand that, okay, I can actually go build an application on this network and have a direct relationship with my users. But for the average consumer, they don't care. Decentralization doesn't mean anything to them. They're not at risk of getting deplatformed or in a meaningful way, in the sense that they don't have a big audience. I mean, I think last year we talked about YouTube was a bit of a challenge for you guys at one point, and obviously your audience is your business. So I think for creators, they also grok that. But I think the average consumer, they don't care, right? What does a consumer actually care about when they're using a social network? It's probably some combination of entertainment, which is the primary, think like TikTok. And then I think there's like kind of a secondary thing, which maybe is like a little bit more Instagram or Snapchat. It's like meeting people. If you're younger, maybe dating people or hooking up with people. But basically, those are your kind of like two primary motivations for using a social network. And so if you take something like Twitter, Twitter is entertainment, right? People can tell themselves that they're following the news or being informed. But the reality is it's very much entertainment. Really simple heuristic. Where do people use the app most of the time? So I think Twitter actually released some of these user minutes by device earlier in last year. I think 88% of time spent on Twitter is on mobile, right? So we're kind of these professionals. We have these like really nice computers. We sit in front of them all day. We're terminally online, and we kind of think everyone else is like us. But the reality is, consumers, they're using social media when they're on the couch or waiting in line for coffee, and that happens on mobile. And so entertainment, mobile is kind of the thing a social network is. And so what we've done is a little bit long-winded, but a lot of focus in the last 6 months for Farcaster is actually trying to get it to a place where I can easily describe it to consumer. And so one thing that we don't do anymore, I never, average person, I'll never describe it as a sufficiently decentralized network. They don't care. I don't talk about the decentralization. I just say Farcaster is a place where you can find interesting people that share similar interests to you online, similar to Reddit. And I think that is actually a much simpler pitch for the average consumer as to why would I care? Why would I want to go sign up? And I don't think we've nailed it in the sense that, I don't think that that's how other people are describing Farcaster at this point. They're still very much being like, oh, it's this cool decentralized social network if you're into crypto, et cetera. But I think the big push for us in 2024 is, if I come back on this podcast next year, I should have a very crisp answer on that. And then more importantly, that's how most people should be describing Farcaster is the kind of thing, what need is it solving for a consumer, rather than talking about the tech. And so I think we're very much in a transition is to kind of answer that.
I think when I hop onto Farcaster, it's first and foremost familiar to me, comparing it to Twitter. It looks a lot like Twitter. It behaves a lot like Twitter. There's a growing flavor of Farcaster that's also increasingly Reddit-like, which is lovely for me because I'm no longer a Reddit user really, ever since, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But for someone who's never used Farcaster before but are familiar with the landscape of Web 2 applications, if they were to open up Farcaster and look at it, what would be the first standout difference to them that they would notice? Like, oh, this thing is new, or what's the new behavior that Farcaster enables or prioritizes?
Yeah, so it's a great way of describing it. It's the UX of Twitter on mobile, which I think Twitter really pushed the feed, like Facebook and Twitter and the kind of like early version of Web 2 social media on mobile, like feed is that's where it kind of emerged. And then I think later Instagram. Reddit never has been a mobile product. Like it existed in the pre-mobile era. Like I think anyone I talk to who uses Reddit seriously, they use it on desktop, and it's kind of designed, the threaded conversation view. It feels like a forum, Hacker News, so that's very much it. And so I think what we're trying to do is bridge the kind of like familiarity and ease of use of a feed like Twitter with the depth and kind of weird esoteric interests that you can find on Reddit. And so we have a feature on Farcaster called Channels now, which is effectively our version of a subreddit. And so whether you're into gardening or, AA wallets in Ethereum, completely different things, you can actually be in one feed consuming content in a way that kind of appeals to all of your interests. And I don't think we've quite figured it out. I think since we launched Channels, and we launched Channels about halfway through last year, had a material increase in types of content people were posting about. Prior to that, it was kind of like standard like crypto Twitter is like kind of there was one main conversation. It felt like one big group chat. I mean, granted, the network was pretty small, but people felt like they couldn't express, the kind of like multifaceted version of themselves. It's like, okay, yeah, I might be really into crypto, but woodworking is also something that I do on the weekend. Like, and so it's the ability to actually kind of wear many hats felt very limited, because it's like, well, maybe my followers don't like woodworking. But in a world where channels show up and I can kind of like, you can almost think of it as like a hashtag if you're just like a Twitter person, but hashtags are kind of cringe and they get really spammy. And so the goal with channels is to kind of nudge it in more of a subreddit direction, where they're actually kind of communities. There's our version of a mod is called a host, but there's kind of like building a way that kind of these spaces feel really high quality and an easy way for you to find other like-minded individuals. And so I think, again, it kind of like where we want to head this year is get to a place where all of that feels really intuitive, which is actually quite challenging in the sense of you show up into an app, there's no one guiding you through it. And so actually that first run experience of like, how does the feed show? Like, do you kind of grok that these are in different, categories and like how those categories work, channels? We're very far from nailing that, but I think we've made a lot of progress, and that's very much the focus of where we want to be this year, because, and I'll just keep reiterating it today, we only win and we only get actually, frankly, crypto, I think, to a much broader group of people if it stops being just about crypto and more about like, what is this, the kind of cool things that crypto especially under the hood are enabling, right? So you could imagine every channel could have some type of membership NFT. And Reddit has an example of like people who are in a subreddit, they can have flair, but what if that flair was basically associated with an NFT? One, that's better monetization for the potential creator of that channel. Two, can't be rugged, right? So Reddit went through a big thing last year with the API, like a bunch of mods were unhappy. Like you could imagine a world where Farcaster channels like, okay, I don't like the way Dan and team are headed. My user base is actually on chain. I can kind of fork it out and go do something different. And so I think we want to balance the average user doesn't care about that, but the creator does. And how can you actually merge those two experiences together where you have this amazing consumer experience on mobile in an app, but the power of kind of blockchain under the hood? Or another way to think about it is like a mullet, right? It's like, business in the front, party in the back. And it's like, you kind of have this like very clean, nice feeling experience when you're using the app, and then all of the stuff that can happen on a blockchain. And you guys are very well aware of how crazy things could start to get, but like that's all permissionless and it can just happen. And so I think that's kind of the mentality that we want to push. But to again reiterate, I think anytime we are talking about the crypto as the appeal of Farcaster, outside of targeting crypto natives, we're kind of losing, because we're not thinking bigger picture of like, how can we actually take this to, 100 million people or 1 billion people? And that certainly is not just going to be harp on the crypto. It's more like, what can this do for me, and why am I interested? Where's the entertainment value coming?
To continue leveling up your crypto game, then you need to get on the Bankless newsletter. It's the world's most popular crypto email and is completely free. Just click below to sign up.